So my name is Craig Gearhart. I'm kind of going to be in and out of the agenda today. I'd like to first, though, introduce Jim Bohan. He's Assistant Secretary. He was appointed Assistant Secretary for Local Program Coordination and Emergency Response in 2012. He has over 40 years of government experience, starting with the Navy, working with counties, and now with the state. He's both a Buffalo and a Ram. He went to the University of Colorado Boulder and Fort Collins, both. He has multiple degrees, math, physics, and science, I believe, and teaching credential. And he's been a big champion of all of our data stuff at the CaliPA level. So with that, I want to welcome Jim, and thank you. You're welcome.
Well, I was asked to come down and to kind of start this off a little bit, and I'm happy to do it. I think it's a really great idea. I'm sorry that we haven't seen something like this before in CaliPA. So, as Greg said, I'm with CaliPA. I'm the Assistant Secretary for Local Programs and Emergency Response, and I've been doing that for several years. I've been with the Office of Secretary since 2005, but I've been in environmental management for a long time. So I got involved with technology and its collection and its use a long, long time ago. I actually built my first electronic device in 1967. A lot of you weren't even born then. and I actually wrote my first line of code when I was in high school in 1968 on a mainframe computer that a friend of mine's mother had access to, so I could do my physics homework. Because at that point in time, there weren't even hand calculators or anything like that. And so a lot of the physics stuff we did had a lot of data computation in it. So yeah, we did that just to make it go faster. I built my first computer in 1972. Anybody remember first generation ICs? They looked like Hostess Twinkies. You can imagine what a Hostess Twinkie looks like. That was a first generation IC. And they had dozens of transistors in them. It was an amazing thing. So you know, in the 70s and 80s, we spent a lot of time working on systems that collect and process data. But back then, and not only back then, but all the way up to pretty modern times as well, we collected information and managed and analyzed information essentially for specific kinds of processes or predefined uses. So there wasn't a lot of this thought process about other people using your data. So most of the organizations, collected data internally and used it internally and processed it internally. And so all of our organizations, not just in CaliPA but everywhere, actually have grown up with this sort of a lack of this mindset about sharing data, because the only data you share is internally, basically. And all the systems you created to share that information internally. And so you're within these nice data kind of stovepipe structure. So back in the 1990s, when we still had dial-up modems, and true, I was with CaliPA working at DTSC, and we were working on the beginnings of a program that started to collect a lot of information, or was looking at collecting a lot of information. So we had industry come to us, and they volunteered to help us sort of move all this critical data that has to do with the storage of hazardous materials and how much and where and kind of those kinds of things. And so they actually came to us and said, well, we can help. We can help you move the data from the local governments to the state governments and share it. But you have to use this communications protocol that's proprietary. And so even when we were back in the early 90s looking at sharing data in kind of real ways to make sure that we get the data, everything was still very proprietary and really specific to process. So, and also what you're looking for, the outputs and those kinds of things. So that technology we started to use back in the early 90s, and it didn't go very far. It didn't last long at all, obviously, and the reason why is pretty simple. It's hard to take that technology and move it to other areas and utilize it over and over again because it's so proprietary and so functionally driven. So sometime later in 2006, CaliPA was trying to find a way to share the information across its boards and departments. And some of you might have been around in 2006 when we created a couple of standing committees to work on sharing information. And we spent hours and hours and hours, and Jarmo will attest to this, too many hours to count, trying to figure out how to create the infrastructure so that the water board can share its information with Cal Recycle, can share its information with DTSC. And the only way they came up with, the only methodologies that actually stood out then were things like redefining all of your data sets so that everybody used the same data definitions. And if you've ever gone through that exercise of trying to, reconcile differences across programs, across major scope type programs, it's an interesting exercise. And I recall the day that we spent about 5 hours trying to define one data element. Made no progress whatsoever across all the boards and departments. And so while there was this massive effort moving forward to make this happen, it just didn't work. It just didn't work at all. And so what happened was we sort of gave up on it, and that whole concept kind of went away. But what's happened over the last decade, this last decade has seen a lot of improvements in the technologies. And it's not technology in the hardware side of the house, although there's improvements still like crazy. The improvements are the technologies in information management, how we manage the information itself. So Cal EPA has started looking at cross-board and department information sharing again. And we're looking at it now not from trying to define things, that kind of stuff. What we're really looking at now is how do we get information from different sources and utilize it? So we stepped out to do a project about a year ago. We call it in Cal Enviro's view. It's actually on the Cal EPA intranet site now. It got put up this last week. It's available to anybody who wants to go use it. What we've done is we've actually grabbed information from 5 separate data systems across the boards and departments, and from US EPA. We blended them together into a user tool. But that's just the very beginning of it. That's just the very beginning to this whole concept of like open data and how you utilize it. The tool itself now has like 225,000 facilities in it. And you can see who regulates those facilities across a number of programs. And we have used the basic concepts that we're talking about today of grabbing data from a variety of sources and throwing them together in some other place. And the way we've done that is we've used the open data. We used SWRCB as a good example to tell you how we did that. SWRCB has this massive amount of information in it. We pull data on things like ag land, animal waste, defense sites, forestry sites, waste discharge requirements, EPS, permits, sewer discharges, and water diversion points. And we grabbed all that information out of SWRCB. And we didn't grab it by going to the programming folks that run SWRCB and saying, we'd like access to your data system. We grabbed it from the public, so this is what we did. And so that information is down in the environment. And so you can look at that information in relation to other pieces of information. And what this EnviroView tool does, as an example, is it looks at the facility or site-specific kinds of information and says, are these the same places? And then it runs, nice sophisticated algorithms, and it says, yes, it's the same, so it puts a pin there. Or it says, no, instead of 5, we think there's 2, and it puts 2 pins there. And then somebody can go in later on and say, no, it's actually only 1, and they can consolidate it. But the reason I bring that up is because it's sort of our beginning of looking at this whole concept of how we grab data, and how we utilize it. We grab stuff from PRI, which is from US EPA, and pass it down through a technology piece and pull it into this system and utilize it. We grab information on the California Environmental Reporting System, which collects information that's actually linked from 82 local government agencies into Cal EPA's system. It's SWRCB for short. You may or may not have heard of it. But it's got like 165,000 facilities in it. And it says things about facilities like, are they inspected, who did the inspections, and what's the outcomes, and those things, as well as who are they regulated by. So what we've done is we've started to look at this whole idea of how you grab information across a variety of platforms and use it and consolidate it. And so it is really a neat thing. I actually thought about trying to put it up today, but I think it's too complicated. So it's live. It's on the intranet. You can go there anytime you want to look at it. Just look in the right-hand columns. Go to the Enviro view. It'll give you a little thing about it, and you can pull it up. You can do all kinds of neat things with it. You can export it. You can do all, the search on it. It's a GIS tool. It does neat stuff. And it's like I said, from CaliPA's perspective, it's just the beginning. We're also looking at other systems. We're looking at complaint systems, integrating those. We're looking at grabbing information out of Cal OSHA on inspections of facilities and pulling that into CaliPA and utilizing that tool. We're looking at the EJ projects and identifying impacts for environmental impacts on communities, and grabbing that information and pulling it as well. So we have a tool, and we're now looking at all this data and moving together. So we're really, really interested in this thing called Open Data Initiatives. And your very first presentation today is the Open Data Initiative. So you should have a really exciting day. I think that this is the beginning of programs that will help us in the environmental world long term, because we don't share data very well across our individual boundaries. And if we start sharing data, it's amazing what you find. So I want to wish you the best of days, and I want to thank you for letting me kick the day off. Thank you very much, and have a great day.